Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, Democrats.
Good evening, Democrats.
Okay, we got two people paying attention, I think, so far. Let's try that again. Everybody on Zoom, unmute. Everybody in here, let's hear it nice and loud. Good evening, Democrats.
Team Democrat.
I like it. That's what I'm talking about, everybody. Welcome to the Santa Monica Democratic Club. In here, out there, I'm John Katz. I've had the privilege of serving as president of the Santa Monica Democratic Club for the past 9 years. Thanks for being here tonight. And I also want to especially commend you for being here with a gubernatorial debate competing for your attention. Hopefully everybody remembered to set their VCRs, but if not, there'll be another one next week. We've got a big decision. I'm glad the club ended up not coming to a consensus here because of how this race has been playing out, and there's lots of time left on the clock, so let's make sure we're paying attention. You'll be able to catch the debate on YouTube later tonight. We just wrapped up our endorsement process for the June primary. I'm really proud of all the work this club has done over the past few weeks and months. And as of this morning, I can report that those endorsements are now printed onto physical mailing cards and are at the mail house, 30,000 copies of those. And those are going in the morning to USPS, and we'll be sending a mailer to every registered Democratic household in Santa Monica with our endorsements. So thank you, everybody, for the work that you did to vet these candidates and consider who we were going to endorse. And we're actually, remember, May 4th, the ballots are going to drop, so be sure to look out for those. And we're actually lucky tonight, one of our endorsed candidates is here with us on Zoom. So please join me in welcoming our candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Michael Tubbs.
Welcome.
Well, so good to see you all again. And thank you so much for your endorsement. My name is Michael Tubbs. I'm the former mayor of Stockton, California, running for Lieutenant Governor with the support and the endorsement of the Santa Monica Dem Club. So thank you all for your leadership and support in this campaign.
CSN and CSN HD1 Dartbridge, Los Angeles. KSBR and KSBR HD1.
Someone's watching the debate. We have 41 days until the election. So every conversation, every donation, every mailer really counts, particularly for the lieutenant governor's race, because there's been so much attention for the governor's race. The lieutenant governor's race is a three-way race for the top two spots. So I know with your all support, we'll be victorious. I'm running for lieutenant governor, as I said before, because I do believe that Donald Trump's a problem, but I don't think Donald Trump is the sum total of the problems we're facing here in California. And we have to build enough housing so that folks are able to live and afford to live in California. We have to get a handle on the poverty issue, and we have to make sure that we illustrate that these values we care about actually translate to a state where folks feel safe, where kids can read, where folks are able to buy homes, and that we can prove that progressive governance, that liberal governance leads to real outcomes. I was the mayor during Trump's first term, so I fought against Donald Trump and delivered the first guaranteed income program in this country's history, a 40% reduction in homicides, went from bankruptcy to the second most fiscally healthy city. I'm looking forward to doing that and more with you all as your next lieutenant governor. So again, Michael Tubbs, with deep appreciation and deep thanks for your vote of confidence. And I assure you, I will work incredibly hard and I will make you proud. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Michael. So we've got a number of get out the vote opportunities coming up between now and the primary, including canvasses right here in Santa Monica for Michael Tubbs, for our endorsed Senate candidate, Shai Roy, and our other endorsed candidates. So keep your eye on the email inbox for all the opportunities. Looking ahead next month, quick programming reminder, May 27th. Right on the eve of the primary, we'll have our next meeting. We're going to be taking on a very important and difficult topic right now, immigration enforcement in the second Trump administration. And we'll be hearing directly from members of our community who are standing up to ICE and DHS and supporting immigrant families. And we'll also be voting that night on one final measure before the primary, the county sales tax, Measure ER. I got this in the mail. We thought that we were done with the primary endorsements, and then right after the meeting where we finished the judicial endorsements and I was wrapping everything up, and someone emailed me and said, hey, don't forget to endorse this. And I was like, okay, thank you. So it won't be on the mailer, that's fine, but we will have the chance just to endorse like a few days, a week before the election. A lot of people are waiting until the end to vote anyway, so we'll hear from the experts about Measure ER and we'll decide whether we support it. And for tonight, we've got a strong program. A little later, we'll be hearing from Jake Levine, who's a friend of the club, running for Congress in our neighboring 32nd district. And we'll also have a panel moderated by our own council member Ellis Raskin, focused on how the Trump administration's anti-climate agenda is hitting marginalized communities the hardest. And with that, we'll turn to the next item on our agenda, our annual executive board election. So this is the team of volunteers that keeps the club running day in and day out. From planning meetings like this one, to communicating with members, to vetting candidates, to fundraising and organizing, it's a huge lift and it's all volunteer. So before we elect the next board, I just want to take a moment as the president to thank the team that's been doing that work for the past year, the board from 2025. So let's give them a round of applause. We have two board members who are rotating off this year. Our Vice President of Programs, Michelle Grant, is not able to be with us tonight, so we'll thank her properly next month. But I also want to take a moment to recognize another one of our outgoing board members, Derek Devermont, who's here. He's been on the board for about 9 years, about the same amount of time as me. And in that time, Derek has really accomplished a lot. He's been elected twice to the Democratic National Committee, where he chairs the Disability Caucus. He's also served on Santa Monica's Public Safety Reform and Oversight Commission for 2 terms and was elected chair, and all that happened in the context of a city council voted for him that was not necessarily the most friendly council we've ever had, and we didn't know how likely that was. And he did a lot of really great work for the city in that space. Within this club, he also led fundraising for our first ever Sammy Awards back in 2019, and he has served as the co-chair of our Judicial Endorsements Committee, providing valuable insight in those elections. Derek and his family recently moved to Marina del Rey, and so under our bylaws, that means he's no longer eligible to serve on the board. So I just want to take a moment to say, Derek, thank you so much for all of you've done for the club. I'm really grateful to know you as a friend and to continue that friendship, and for all the work you've done for the Democratic Party at every level. Thank you so much. You want to come up? Derek Devermont.
Thanks for the kind words. I'm not sure I deserve all that credit, but I will say that when I joined the board, however long ago it was, this was a small club, and since then it's become, I would say, the most influential, successful, active club in Los Angeles County, and really that I've seen across the country. And while that is a compilation of everyone's efforts that has partaken in this club, if you had to pick one person that was determinative in its success, it's not me, it's John Katz. So that's the one essential puzzle piece that brings all the other puzzle pieces together. So thank you, everyone, for letting me take part in this organization, and thank you for creating something for me to be a part of, John.
All right, so now let's look ahead to the 2026 board. And I'm just going to take a moment to clearly walk through the process just so everyone understands how we got here. In accordance with our bylaws, notice of the election was provided in advance, and members of the club were given the opportunity to declare their candidacy by a stated deadline. At the close of that period, the number of candidates that had sought to be on the board this year exactly matched the number of open positions. So under our bylaws and standard procedure, there are no contested races this year. That means the body can now act to approve the full slate. But we're still going to introduce the candidates so members know who will be serving, and then we'll take a vote to approve the slate. And also just to say, if you missed the deadline this year or were interested in applying and were afraid to do so, we always have ways to get involved with the club. There's committees, there's projects, there's future board opportunities, so please don't hesitate to reach out and we can start working towards next year. Before we proceed, I'll just ask, are there any procedural questions about the process as we've outlined? Okay. Not seeing further procedural questions, we'll now proceed. Sorry, Mitchell, go ahead.
When you have candidates up here, last time you had... Yeah, this has to do with procedure. I wish you would have more time for the people in the audience to ask questions, because when you have candidates, they talk, they dominate the time. And very little times, for instance, Senator Ben Allen, very little time, one question for a Senate position. So I repeat, more time given to the public to ask questions because they have issues. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the feedback. It's not exactly germane to the election, but I appreciate the feedback and we'll take it under advisement. I understand. Are there any other questions? Okay. So now we have 10 returning board members and 2 new board members joining the team, Kay Ambrose and Andrew Sprung. Can somebody play timekeeper? Maybe Gary? Can you give us just, if someone goes too far over 1 minute, you can call them out. So we're going to hear from each candidate as we go through the slate in order, beginning with the president, which is me. Ready? Okay. This will be my 10th year serving as president of the club, and thank you. Over that time, we faced a lot of challenges and changes. But the truth is that the biggest threat we were dealing with back then is still here with us now. Donald Trump is an authoritarian threat to American democracy, and he's made it clear he's willing to tear down the fabric of this country, deport and murder innocent civilians, and hold on to power at any cost. So let's be clear about why this club exists. We're here to organize our community around our shared Santa Monica values and make sure we elect people who will actually fight for those values, not just people who say that they will. Because what Trumpism is counting on is people backing down, getting tired, and getting quiet. And as long as I'm president of this club, we are going to be loud and unapologetic about our values and relentless in making sure that this community is represented by people who will stand up and fight. Thank you. And now do we have Sean Kaloji? Are you on the Zoom? Okay, not seeing Sean. Okay, we'll move on to Mike Soloff for membership VP. And the other board members can get ready to come up in just a moment.
Good evening, everybody. Notwithstanding that we have the same challenge as we've had before, we are living in a time that I never thought I would see in my life. I got this pin at the No Kings March with Renee Good and Alex Preddy on it, and I keep it on my desk to remind me of 2 things. One, we're living in a time when American citizens are murdered by their government. That's shocking. And number 2, that we all have to have the kind of bravery that they had to fight against this. So whether that's digging deeper into our pockets, taking more time, whatever it is, we all need to keep that in mind in opposing the Trump administration, but also locally showing what a real community that will actually advance the values for everybody, including the least among us who are struggling for affordability, for housing and things like that. We need to be brave there too. So that's why I continue to be in this club, and I guess I hope you'll vote for me as opposed to nobody. Thank you.
Okay, next up is one of our new candidates for Vice President of Programs, Kay Ambrose.
Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Kay Ambrose. I've been a lifelong Democrat since the age of 18 when I first was able to vote and voted for Barack Obama, my inspiration. I'm currently a Santa Monica elected serving as the vice chair of the Rent Control Board. I'm also serving on the legislative committee for this club, tracking 3 bills. And I was previously on the Social Services Committee, committee. I'm interested in advocacy of all things social justice, and it would be a privilege and an honor to serve for this club as Vice President of Programs. I'm very detail-oriented, and I think it could be of service in that way. In terms of being a part of the exec overall, I'd like to say that I'm very fair and balanced in my decision-making, and that I strive to leave things as they are, or actually better than I left it. Thank you. Vote for me. Yay.
Okay, next up is our Vice President of Communications, Philippe.
Who has the time or the energy to put things out like this?
Hello, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Philippe.
Sorry.
We were seeing what was being said, and we're horrified by with the things.
Is it good? I can't hear you, John.
Sorry, you're good. You can.
Okay, cool. Hello, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Philippe Nizal, and I am running for re-election for the VP of Communications. I am a junior at New Roads who unfortunately couldn't come today because of a physics test. Throughout my time as VP of Communications, I have rallied the youth community to join the Santa Monica Dems together to regain our democracy. As we approach the midterm season and the gubernatorial election, I hope I can continue to serve as your VP of Communications to rally our club in these turbulent times. Together, I believe we can turn the tide, unite, and win for our party. Thank you, and vote for me, please.
Okay, thank you, Philippe. And next up, our Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion, Keith Coleman.
Thanks so much, John. It's great to see everyone. My name is Keith Coleman, and I'm truly thankful and grateful to actually be standing here. And I was at UCLA Santa Monica a couple weeks ago with blood clots in my lungs, and so it was quite something to see my wife and my 2 sons at the bedside in that way. So I really am grateful in so many ways. I really am. It's been really wonderful to be a part of this club with leaders such as Mike, and Derek, and John, and Isabel. And my interest is to continue to sort of provide opportunities, really to democratize awareness, to continue to sort of provide information so that people can think well and share stories with others, and also to continue to practice trying to listen well. And so I think all of those things are really helpful, not certainly just for this club, but I think for us, societally as well. We've got to truly find ways so that language is not continuing to be weaponized, and that that we can find, real common ground that's based on very sensible things. So I hope that you provide your vote for me today, and it's nice to see everyone.
Okay, next up, our Vice President of Legislative, Isabel Story.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you. So I've been a member of the club for, I think, 7 or 8 years, on the Legislative Committee for 5, and the VP of Legislation for 4 years now. During this time, we've had a really strong run where we have taken positions on 20 to 30 bills a year and advocated for them on all kinds of issues that are important: environment, housing, healthcare, education, and protecting our community in these turbulent times that we've been talking about. What does our committee do? We find and research bills, we get them endorsed, then we track them through the legislative process and advocate by calling and sending letters to legislators all the way up through getting the governor to sign them. So in these days when it's so frustrating with what's going on at the federal level and everything's in disarray, it's great that we're here in a state where we can actually get good things done. That's why I like doing legislation. We can actually get laws to make life better here and to protect our rights against the abuses of the federal government.
Okay, next up, our treasurer, Marcy Leibovitz.
Good evening. I took on this role to basically do what I can and what I've learned to do well for a long career as a CPA. No, I'm not taking any clients, and the treasurer will kill me if I do. The timekeeper, rather, will kill me if I do. But we are, there's so much going on in the world right now that is so difficult and abusive to so many people. The tax code, which of course we don't have a whole lot of influence on unless we can elect new people. And I'm very pleased that over this last year, through the organizing of the program VP, Michelle Grant, and the incredible fundraising by John Katz and Sean Kaloji, we are in a very great position to be able to promote the candidates that we want to get elected, despite a lot of increases in costs. And I appreciate your time and am doing as much as I can. So thank you for your time.
Okay, next up, our recording secretary, Lynn Cervini.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lynn Cervini, and I'm originally from Rochester, New York. I lived for over 30 years in Austin, Texas, where I raised my son. And we attended a progressive activist church, much like this church right here. And I'm proud to say that my son attended Sunday school class for many years with the next senator of the state of Texas, James Tallarico. So we're proud of him. And so I've been the recording secretary for about 2 years now. And I use this program called Fathom Video, and we get along pretty well. It corrects my mistakes, and I correct its mistakes, too. And so I would like to continue serving you as your recording secretary. So I hope you'll vote for me as opposed to no one else. So thank you.
Okay, so those were the candidates for specific officers, and now we have 3 at-large members of the board also running. And so first up, we'll hear from the longest tenured board member and possibly member of the entire club, Patricia Hoffman.
Thank you, John.
Oh, hold on, sorry, Nate, we got another Zoom speaker. Okay, go ahead, Patricia.
Okay, thank you. I'm Patricia Hoffman. I've been a social and economic justice activist for most of my life. I believe that food, housing, healthcare, and education are human rights. They are not privileges. I am deeply committed to the city and the people of Santa Monica. I've served on this board, as John alluded to, for decades, including as a past president of the board. And I would like to continue on the board, not as president. John's doing a great job. I think that that institutional memory is important to good decision making. I'm also grateful to the newer board members who are the leaders who will be taking us into the future. I would appreciate your vote tonight. Thank you.
And next up, we have Susan Shu, who is sadly attending a funeral this evening, so she sent a video for me to share.
Good evening, Democrats. My name is Susan Shu, and I've been an active member of the Santa Monica Democratic Club since 2017. In 2020, with this club's endorsement, I was elected to the Los Angeles County Democratic Party Central Committee, and I was re-elected in 2024. In 2024, I was also elected to be an officer of the LA County Democratic Party, and I feel that I owe a lot of my activist career and education to the Santa Monica Dems and to our community and its support. It's through my involvement in our club that I really began to understand and work toward building the strong local bench of our future civic leaders and the kind of voters we need to have to be educated enough to elect them. I've lived and owned a home in Santa Monica for over 25 years, and my 3 children have attended and thrived in Santa Monica Public Schools. 2026 is another very consequential election year for California and for our whole country. I would love to earn your support once again to continue serving on the SMDC board and helping steer the conversation and the action we all need to do the work of taking back our democracy and making it more fascist-proof from the local level on up to the national level. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And now, last but not least, our second new member this year, Andrew Sprung.
Good evening, Santa Monica Democrats. My name is Andrew Sprung. I believe I know many of you, but not all of you, so happy to be up here to introduce myself. Like others on the stage before me, I've been a lifelong Democrat. My first presidential election was voting for Al Gore. Sadly, he did not win, but definitely have continued to support and work to get Democrats elected since 1999. I'm very happy to, hopefully, if you vote for me, be of service to this board in any way that I possibly can. I grew up in Michigan around Democratic politics my entire life, so I'm no stranger to seeing my parents and my sister to this day walk picket lines to fight for better workers' rights and conditions, especially when it comes to the United Auto Workers. So I have a lot of skills that may be of use to the club. My background's largely in data, but fun fact, 23 years ago I did get a degree in political science, so my parents are probably pretty happy that I'm going to hopefully put it to use for the good of the club. So thank you for coming tonight, and hopefully you'll support me in this role.
Well, thank you so much to all the candidates. Let's give them all a round of applause. Okay, so At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the slate of candidates as presented. So we have a motion from Anastasia and seconded by Derek. Is there any discussion? I'm looking on Zoom. Okay, not seeing any. We'll proceed to a vote. We'll do a hand vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay.
And people on Zoom can vote as well,
Lynn,
please.
as the secretary, can you help me count these hands?
Don't forget, Al Gore only lost by 1 vote. It was 5-4.
Okay, I have 25 plus 10 on Zoom, and
No.
I'm checking to see, are there any
I
just
see at
Oh,
least
yeah, Ralph
13
got
on
his hand
Zoom.
up, so that's 11 on Zoom.
Yeah, and Wendy has her hand up,
12
and
on Zoom total. Okay, so we'll do 30, 37. Okay, everyone can put their hands down now. Okay. Oh, my hand is up. Okay, all those opposed to the motion? Michael Tarbett, are you opposed to the motion, or was that a late hand raise? Okay. Okay, just making sure. Want to count every vote. Any other noes? Okay, any abstentions? Okay, not seeing anybody. The motion carries. Congratulations to the new executive board. And of course, I especially want to say thank you to Kay, thank you to Andrew for stepping up. And you both already started to do work even before you've assumed the role, so I'm really grateful to continue that partnership as we continue. And thank you to the members for your confidence. We're really looking forward to the work ahead as we head into this critical election year together. So now let's switch gears to the main discussion for the evening. Today marks the 56th anniversary of the Earth Day celebration, and this panel was actually inspired by our outgoing programs VP, Michelle Grant, who I want to give full credit to, who suggested that we use this moment to take a closer look at where things really stand with climate. Now, the last time that we had a deep conversation on the topic of climate at this club, we heard from David Dayan and Harold Meyerson from the American Prospect. They walked us through Project 2025 and what was then a very stark warning about a coordinated agenda to roll back environmental protections in service of a very extreme political and economic project. And now we're more than a year into the current administration. We're no longer talking about the playbook. We're seeing the real-world effects of that Project 2025 play out. Climate protections are being dismantled, and once again, it's frontline and already marginalized communities who are carrying the heaviest burden. So tonight, on Earth Day, we wanted to center this conversation in what that actually looks like on the ground right now and what it means for the future if this trajectory continues. And with that, I'm pleased to turn it over to our moderator for this evening, Santa Monica City Council member and environmental attorney, Ellis Raskin.
Thank you, John, and thank you to the Santa Monica Democratic Club for hosting this important conversation tonight. I'm thrilled to be joined tonight by 4 true champions of environmental justice and folks who are really putting in the hard work to effectuate change at the local level. You know, the fight for the environment has been going on for a very long time, as long as we've had an environment. But there are truly unique and different challenges that now exist in this time. As a Santa Monica City Council member, we're dealing with some really interesting and unique challenges here locally for our local environment. We still see that there are about 100 to 300,000 people who commute into our city every day, which has a tremendous impact on local and global greenhouse gas emissions. There is still a jobs housing imbalance. We have an airport that we're trying to refocus the future towards. We have a freeway that cuts through the heart of one of the last diverse communities here in Santa Monica. So the impacts are real. And tonight, we're going to focus particularly on the impacts of the Trump agenda on local and indigenous communities and the work that we can do to solve that. So for the folks who are watching at home, one logistical note, we're going to invite up the panelists and we'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. But I think first we're going to pause the recording at this time so that we can have an open and candid conversation about these really difficult topics. And we'll pick up again, for those of you watching the recording, when we see Jake Levine after this panel discussion. And with that, I'd like to invite up our panelists, Lorraine Lundquist, Chris Gutierrez, Allison Hom, and Bob Ramirez. I see there is a microphone over there. Bob, can you, oh, there are two actually. Yep. All right. See, a green light is on. Okay. Like I said, these are four true champions, and rather than hearing from me, I'd love to give these folks an opportunity to introduce themselves in their own words. So maybe we can go down the line and tell us about the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you so much for giving up your time, the governor's debate or whatever else you might have been doing tonight to come see us. My name is Dr. Lorraine Lundquist. I wear many hats. I am a board consultant for the South Coast Air Quality Management District for Supervisor Holly Mitchell, who represents all of LA County on that board. I'm also working on the county side for the supervisor as an environmental justice deputy. And I'm also active in many climate justice spaces, and I'll highlight specifically LA Forward, where I'm the board chair and leader of our climate justice working group.
Hi, everyone. So nice to see you all today. My name is Allison Hom. I'm an attorney with Natural Resources Defense Council. I'm joining today just in my personal capacity, but NRDC is a member of the Moving Forward Network, which is a nationwide network of community members, frontline residents, academic institutions, and labor, organized labor groups that are fighting to eliminate freight pollution and advance the shift to zero-emission freight operations. And I work closely with Trade, Health, and Environment, the Impact Project, which is the Southern California arm of the Moving Forward Network. And we focus on the harbor region of Los Angeles, where all of the goods that we order come in and out of the harbor and trucked all across the Inland Empire throughout California. So my goal really is to be, I'm a community lawyer. I work in partnership with frontline residents feeling the impacts from the freight industry and from surrounding cumulative impacts from oil extraction and production, industrial operations that are escalating and with community members that are really feeling the impacts from the rollbacks of environmental regulations that are really targeted by the federal government right now. So really excited to be with you all today and just brainstorm ways that we can work together to reduce this burden that's disproportionately placed on communities of color and low-income communities.
Good evening, or I should say, welcome fellow creatures, fellow beings of the biosphere. That is indeed how I relate to both my work and the way I choose to live my life. I'm Chris Gutierrez, a local Santa Monica resident. I'm happy to be with you this evening. I love being in the Church at Ocean Park because it was also the home when we co-founded Climate Action Santa Monica. The church took a very big stance on making doggone sure its own environmental work was very much prominent. My own work had begun prior to that in Santa Monica as a peace activist, anti-nuclear, and that continues. And that led to all my environmental work for what I suppose are obvious reasons. In 2010, if you remember, with the Citizens United decision, the city's task force on the environment then, now the Commission on Sustainability, Environmental Justice, and the Environment, decided to look at how could we really protect the environment. And I happen to be the community gardener liaison, because I chair the Community Gardens Advisory Committee. To this day, I chair that. So I was following the rights of nature work internationally. The Task Force for the Environment members started to dive in on that because they too had begun to learn about it. And we realized that that would be the main way we in Santa Monica could really protect not only our ecological environment, but most important, the connection of human life with that and nature life. So by 2013, after the 3-year experience of study, and I helped organize a community, we passed unanimously on our council the Sustainability Rights Ordinance, our rights of nature. Santa Monica is the only city that did that in the country on a positive basis. We took our sustainability plan and we codified it. And so my role has always been a community activist helping in that regard. That has a prominent feature today as we really look at the impact Indigenous are suffering. Because when we look at our Indigenous families, they teach us first and foremost how to live in right relationship with land, with our nature. And that is at the heart of our Sustainability Rights Ordinance. So one of my efforts as a community gardener and working on food sovereignty, climate solutions, and regenerative farming and such, always returned to that consciousness of how we work with all types of families of color, particularly in embedding Indigenous lessons that we're learning at Kuruvunga, and Bob will tell you more about that in a moment. But I'd like to add that the community gardens here in Santa Monica are 50 years this year, are also working with the Great Park, because we have, in fact, as a member, I am a member of the Great Park Coalition, board member, and that is an earnest, wonderful way to manifest that Sustainability Rights Ordinance, and to take regenerative farming deeper into the immersion with nature to protect not only the environment, biodiversity, but food sovereignty, food security. We have a micro example of what we hope will happen at the Great Park as a farm. We have that opening on June 14th there at the 19th Street Farm. And that is a community, it's our first community managed in the Virginia Park area. It's on 19th Street, about three lots north of Pico. And that's a prominent example of how we're trying to weave together all the work that we are doing. I also am your West Side advisor for the Clean Power Alliance. That's critical because, as we know, for climate, that is our heaviest duty, immediate way of addressing greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, mobility. I do a lot of work with I co-chair the San Jose Safe Streets Alliance, getting us out of those cars that are coming in and out of the city and creating other alternative infrastructure for multimodal ways of moving oneself about. It's great to be with you this evening.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Bob Ramirez. I am the president of the Gabrielino Tongva Springs Foundation, and our mission is to protect and preserve and restore and revitalize the ancient village of Kuruvunga. August 4th, 1769, the first Europeans to traverse Alta California, sent by the King of Spain, arrived at what we now call the Tongva Sacred Springs, located on the grounds of University High School, which is owned by the largest landowner in the city of Los Angeles, the LAUSD. They own 6,400 acres of land. They own 22,000 buildings. We are a speck on their real estate portfolio, yet the site that we protect and preserve is incredibly important for the entire community. It is the historical origin of the city of Santa Monica. The name of the city came from the springs that were named after Saint Monica herself by the Spanish, who were reminded of the tears that she shed because of her wayward son Augustine. And that name stuck. The 1875, the city of Santa Monica was created, and they used this water from the springs as the water supply for the city of Santa Monica. They took the water and the name of the springs. Today, every day, these springs produce over 60,000 gallons of clean, fresh water that's generated from the Santa Monica Mountains. It takes between 70 and 40 years for this water to travel underground and surface at the springs. It's a 2-acre site. We have a lease agreement with the LAUSD to manage the site. We do have issues, which we can get into if you really want to, talk about the threats. But we are vibrant. I know Joe has been there, and this gentleman, people have visited the springs, and they're amazed by how we've been able to, the last 5 or 6 years, really do a major restoration. Right now, we have over 200 species of native plants that we're nurturing. We work with Theodore Payne Foundation, UCLA, Huntington Gardens, Descanso Gardens, the Bay Foundation, all the community organizations, and we're big supporters of the Great Parks Coalition. And we actually have a plan, perhaps in my lifetime. I'm only 107 years old. No, it's not true. I drink the water. But maybe in my lifetime we will see the runway at the airport removed and reconstituted as a giant spiral ziggurat enveloped with native plants. We are right now we are creating a native plant nursery collaborating with Theodore Payne, using the spring water to propagate, so that we will be ready at the end of 2028 when we get in there and start building the park. We will be there on hand to help spread the joy and the beauty and the vital importance of native plants. Because you can't really have native culture, I think, without the connection to the native plants. And as you may know, a lot of the native culture in the city of Los Angeles has been marginalized, has been, I would say, almost destroyed, first by the Spanish, then by the Mexican, then by the Americans. So the Gabrielino native people here, I am actually a descendant of the Gabrielino. My ancestors are buried in the San Gabriel Mission, which is why Gabrielino becomes the name to describe the natives that were part of that mission system. They got no land at all. It was taken first by the Spanish, then by the Mexicans, and then by the developers in the United States. But we still hang on to the memories. And the importance of the springs is it gives us a way to reconnect with our ancestors, with the antiquity of the site. There's a lot of ancient history here on the land that we're standing on, and we don't know about it because our culture, I think, has issues with history. It's another topic. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to participate in this to make the world a better place.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you all. I'm hoping you can kick us off by talking about how your work is shaped in this moment by the Trump government's policies, and just generally how this moment in our political history has now shaped the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt, but just for those watching at home, this is the moment when we're going to pause the recording for sensitivities, especially talking about the Trump administration interactions. So sorry if you're watching on YouTube, but we'll be back in just a moment. Yeah, thanks again. Let's hear it one more time for our panel. And let's, of course, give it up for our moderator, Ellis Raskin. So really thank you, everybody, for that thoughtful and important conversation. And next up, to close us out tonight, we're pleased to welcome a friend of the club, Jake Levine, a Democratic candidate for Congress, challenging incumbent Brad Sherman. And grab a seat, grab a microphone just to finish the explanation. He's bringing experience from the Biden administration. He worked on climate and national security policy. And local note, he's also the son of our former Congressman Mel Levine, who represented Santa Monica in Congress in the 80s and 90s. And he's running on a platform of urgent climate action pertinent to tonight's discussion, clean energy leadership, and a commitment to rejecting corporate PAC money. And before we start, I just want to remind everybody, this is not an endorsement process. Jake is here as a friend of the club to share his campaign and perspective. Let's please welcome Jake Levine.
Thank you, John. Hi, everybody. We're burning the midnight oil here.
Right.
This is good.
So let's just get right into it. I mean, you've worked at the highest levels of climate and national security policy, but what made you decide that this is the right moment to go to Congress?
Well, first of all, let me reiterate my thanks to the club for having me. I was reflecting walking up that I actually used to live on this street on Hill and 7th, and I have very wonderful memories of Ocean Park, and the work that you guys do at the Santa Monica Dem Club is really, really awesome and really important in mobilizing the community, keeping people engaged, and really, I think among the Dem clubs, distinguishing yourselves as a club that is really active on climate and environmental justice. Just the fact that you're even having this panel tonight is really excellent. And I love the way that you dedicated Earth Day to talking about issues of social equity. It's critical. I also will say, just because somebody on the panel mentioned Tom Hayden, and in addition to being a fighter for working people and for the environment for his whole career, you may not know that Tom Hayden was a killer baseball player. And I actually played on an old man's team with Tom Hayden. It was a team called the Hollywood Stars that no longer plays. But I have some really funny memories. And Tom could get very colorful in the dugout when a call didn't go his way. So John, your question, I most recently served as the senior director at the National Security Council for Climate and Energy. So I had a team that was responsible for leading the U.S.'s engagement all over the world on trade matters, on issues in the multilateral context. We led the work on the UNFCCC, which is the Framework Convention on Climate Change. We led the work on the Global Plastics Treaty, which we almost got in our last year, and actually were able to make some real progress to bringing new partners into that treaty process. Never got Saudi Arabia and Korea to come along, but we will live to fight another day, hopefully there. And actually, in that portfolio, I spent a lot of time working on Ukraine and on democracy in Ukraine. But as folks here may know, the way we thought of the war in Ukraine was that there was the front on the eastern border with Russia, and then there was what we called the energy front, where Russia was consistently missiling and droning and attacking civilian infrastructure. And my team's responsibility was to keep the grid alive in Ukraine and to be in Kyiv working on that to make sure that we could keep the lights on in the democracy. I served also in the Obama White House as a climate advisor. I went to an agency called the Development Finance Corporation, which we used to invest billions of dollars in clean energy infrastructure. And I practiced law for a long time here in LA as an environmental lawyer and as a climate attorney. We actually, when I was practicing, I built a coalition to sue the Trump administration around its rollbacks of basically Clean Air Act regulations, some mercury and air toxics and some water stuff. Then, with a week left of my service in the Biden administration, the home that I grew up in, my mom's house, was destroyed in the Palisades fire, along with thousands of other homes. I'm sure many of you in this room also were touched by that fire. And I immediately got to work in rebuilding. I helped start a nonprofit called the Department of Angels. We joined forces between Evan Spiegel's SNAP Foundation and something called the California Community Foundation, a big LA-based foundation. And to this day, Department of Angels is equipping fire survivors with the tools that they need to navigate their own recoveries. And what I found was that even though there were so many silver linings to that work, there was so much dysfunction in our government, so much ineffectiveness, so little response. And actually, to this day, more than a year later, we still don't really have a strategy guiding us forward. We don't know how we're going to raise the money. Karen Bass and Catherine Barger just met with Trump today. that's a meeting that should have happened a year ago. And in fact, we at Department of Angels were facilitating behind the scenes meetings with the Trump administration, kinds of meetings that our own representatives apparently weren't able to get on the books. So I decided, and it's not something that I took lightly because, as I mentioned, I'm a good Democrat. I served 2 presidents. I'm a rule follower by nature. But I felt that something changed in me after those fires, and I wanted to see our government bringing a new kind of urgency, a new kind of responsiveness to the community, and one that could move more quickly and more effectively, and that's why I decided to run for office.
Got it, thanks. So thinking about the incumbent, Brad Sherman, who's in the district, I think most people think of him as generally a good Democrat. What do you think is missing from his years of service, his leadership? He's been in there for decades serving the Valley. What do you think needs to change?
Well, several things, but I want to say, you know, I think a lot of times we get asked as Democrats, you know, what are you going to focus on? And what I'm more interested in, even more than being against Donald Trump, even though we have to do our work against Donald Trump, is to be for the things that we're for. And what I want to say, just in direct response to your question, is that my campaign is not about being against Brad Sherman. It's about being for things that I feel that we need to do better on in our district. And you know, my family's story of being left behind in the Palisades recovery, to this day, every week I am on the phone with the insurance adjuster to work on property contents and loss of use. We're in a system here where the insurance companies are not paying claims to people who never missed a payment on their insurance bill. That's ridiculous. And that should be wrapped into our climate resilience policy, and we should have consumer advocacy opportunities and institutional capacity for that, which we don't have. But what I will say is the things that we are for are making sure that people can afford to live in LA. No one in my district, and I will say we're actually not in the district here, so just to be clear, the congressional district I'm running in is north of San Vicente. It goes from Malibu to Laurel Canyon and then from Brentwood all the way up to Porter Ranch, and we have Simi Valley now. But across this district, young people are paying off student loans. Young parents can't afford childcare. Almost nobody can afford to buy a home in our district, let alone pay the rent. We've got an immigrant community that, in spite of serving so thanklessly as the economic engine for the San Fernando Valley, for Simi Valley, for Ventura and LA counties, is now on the front lines of a authoritarian deportation push. And those people deserve a pathway to citizenship. And that's what I'm fighting for. And Congressman Sherman and his colleagues have had decades to deliver on these kinds of things, whether it's affordability, whether it's immigration reform, whether it's a strategy to keep people feeling safe in their communities, which today is a real challenge from Encino to Brentwood to Simi. And my thesis here is that when we flip the House, and flip the House we will, we must and we will, we want to fill the House with new leaders, with voices, people who have new ideas, who have fresh ideas, who have energy, who can build coalitions, who can get things done. I'll just, one more note on this. My career I've spent working on climate and clean energy, but it has taught me how to win tough fights, like passing SB 32 and AB 197 in Sacramento with Fran Pavley, for which we had to build a whole new coalition around environmental justice to get our work done, like creating the California Climate Action Corps, which I did with Josh Friday and Gavin Newsom during the pandemic. It's put 20,000 plus young people to work on resilience. Actually, this morning for Earth Day, I wasn't wearing my suit. I was out composting with some Climate Action Corps folks in the Sepulveda Basin. But these are things that have tested me as somebody who's learned how to build coalitions and implement new ideas and build new things. The startup company that I helped take from infancy to IPO, which it has delivered billions of dollars of savings for people on their electric bills. We need that kind of creativity and building in our government, and that's what I'm focused on doing.
Sure. Okay. So I want to tie into the panel we just had and thinking about how the Trump administration is rolling back climate protections, and especially on vulnerable communities. You can sort of comment on the general things we were hearing in the panel, but I also want to ask you, thinking about going into Congress and focusing on what's in the Democrats' control, not what Trump is doing specifically, but what Democrats can do. Where do you think that Democrats are falling short on climate policy right now, and where do you think they need to, improve the substance of the policy?
Such a good question. First of all, reflecting on the content of the last panel, I would like to share that, unfortunately, in LA and Ventura counties, and this is true in my district, there are too many communities that still to this day have not received justice on basic issues of environmental health. I'm talking about really basic things: clean air, clean water. And I'll provide a couple of examples that, in my view, need to be immediately rectified. Some of you may be familiar with the case study of Santa Susana, which is sort of between the West Hills and Simi Valley, was a field laboratory in the 50s run by Aerojet Rocketdyne, now owned by Boeing, where there's a tremendous amount of environmental contamination, both chemical and nuclear. And actually, in that community, there are still to this day children who are dying of cancer at a rate that is higher than the regional average. And there have been epidemiological studies concluding that that is causally related to the environmental damage at Santa Susana. And for 75 years, this is a community that hasn't been able to get adequate remediation from DOE, which is in charge of this from the federal government, from Boeing now, which owns the site, and from the state of California, amazingly, from the state of California. And anybody in this room that has ever dealt with DTSC, and I heard a lot of talk about the Exide facility, and we know about that. We need to hold our own agencies accountable. And DTSC has not forced an adequate plan at Santa Susana. So that's one important local issue. Secondly, as it relates to the fires, there are so many communities local to this area that have become the receiving grounds for what we know is hazardous waste that is not fit to be disposed of in the landfills in Simi Valley and in Calabasas, for example, where it is presently being disposed of. It's also happening in the east part of the valley, outside my district. And the state of California affirmatively chose to stick its head in the sand, and rather than testing the waste, which they knew would test as hazardous, they decided to not test it so that they could use those landfills rather than taking it to a properly rated hazardous waste site that could safely dispose of that material. That needs to be rectified. But these are just the local issues, and I feel that our adage, and it's worth repeating on Earth Day, in the environmental movement has always been to think globally and act locally. And I think that that is so true. And if we're not able to reflect on our own ambitions here, oh, and there's another one. Sorry, there's one more I want to add because I know folks may be familiar with it. Raise your hand if you've heard of Aliso Canyon. So that site exploded, as we all know, at the end of 2015. I was working for Fran Pavley at the time, and we passed a bill called SB 380, which required that the facility be brought down to its lowest viable storage, effectively shut down until it could be rendered safe. But when we did that, we asked the utility execs, SoCalGas, Edison, DWP, to get around a table together and commit to a plan to phasing off of that. We did an accelerated procurement for clean energy for batteries. to come in place of it. And 10 years later, they're drilling new wells. That thing is filled to the brim. And just as a point of fact, and I don't mean this in any negative way, but I attended a community meeting in Porter Ranch about a month ago. And somebody from Congressman Sherman's staff was there, and when asked, what are you guys doing on this? His response was more or less that there's not that much that they can do. And that's the kind of thing that makes me feel frustrated, because we all know that there's a lot we can do. We can work on reducing demand for gas. We can replace the gas that we don't need for electricity with batteries. We can force the utilities to the table and get them to commit to a phase down. And if there's nothing that the people who are in power can do, what kind of a message is that sending to all of us who want so badly to be a part of these local solutions with our own two hands? So I'm sorry because I didn't get to Trump. There's we don't even, I will say, I just want to say one thing on Trump, because I've been talking a lot with friends and colleagues in the climate space, and I know people are hard at work thinking about sort of a climate 2.0. Are we going to reinstate the Inflation Reduction Act? What are we going to do about data centers and AI and the grid? And I will just say, there are solutions. There are great solutions. There should be no data center that gets permitted and built without requiring the company that is building it, for example, Microsoft, to pay and make sure that it brings electricity prices down, to pay and make sure that they're investing in water-positive infrastructure so that that asset is creating a benefit, to pay and make sure that when it comes into a community that the interests of the public interest are taken into account. And that will require local and state ordinances to do it, but there are levers to do it at the federal government. And on the regulatory side, we immediately, day one, we have to reinstate the endangerment finding. We have to protect the California waiver, something that was bipartisan in nature for the last 70 years. It's outrageous what they've done to politicize this. And I do think that we can get things back on the right track, and that there are solutions to these challenges.
Thank you. Yeah. So, thinking about if I agree, Democrats will take the majority next year.
Yeah.
And assuming you're a part of that as a freshman member, what will be the first bill that we'll see with your name on it?
Well, first of all, I will say there are three things that I'm focused on, and I will say this about them. There was this through line for all three, which is that they are bipartisan in nature. And they are about resilience and recovery from wildfire, number one. And why is this bipartisan in nature? Because there are people in North Carolina and Texas and Florida who are all grappling with the same exact climate reality that we're in. We need to, and by the way, what's happened with Trump, it's an outrage, it's a catastrophe, it's all that was stipulate to everything. It's also an enormous opportunity to now rebuild. And what I want to see in the institutional rebirth of an agency like the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, is a recentering on resilience for making people's lives better. We need to underground the wires in the Palisades when they rebuild that. And LADWP needs support from FEMA to do that. They should be doing that in Encino and Sherman Oaks too, because we know that the embers coming off of the Sepulveda Basin, heading straight to Sherman Oaks, are at risk of igniting a fire just like the Palisades fire in the valley. So one is federal support for resilience and reinvigoration of the agencies that are going to be responsible for doing that. Number two and number three I mentioned at the top, but those are housing affordability and immigration reform. And I believe that all three of these issues are amenable to bipartisan collaboration. It will require Democrats taking a deep breath a little bit and being willing to leave some of the partisanship to the side to figure out what we have in common with our Republican friends. And if there was one thing that I wish Democrats were doing better, it would be not always fanning the flames of partisanship in Washington, because at the end of the day, 50% of the country is Republican. And to move forward as a nation, we have to figure out a way to come together. And I do think that on these three issues, on housing, on immigration, and on disaster relief, there is a pathway forward.
Okay, thanks. So now we'll close with this. We've asked all the candidates running statewide about the dynamic in the Democratic Party, about being a fighter and being having a strong spirit to fight against the Trump administration and other forces. So let us know why you're the choice for people who want to see the most active and engaged Democratic Party pushing back against the worst things going on right now.
I will just say, I'm done waiting. And as a party, we wait and wait and wait. We try to pick the right moment. We gotta do stuff. I didn't wait to be a member of Congress to start a fire recovery nonprofit to get people back on their feet. I didn't wait to become a member of Congress to start every Friday morning, I am at a Home Depot parking lot. I've got a walkie-talkie in one hand, I have a whistle in my other hand, and I am patrolling that lot to make sure that our community and our neighbors are safe against ICE. And when I found out that this particular parking lot is sitting on LA City property, it's at the Van Nuys Airport, I decided to write a petition. We brought that petition to the city with hundreds of signatures demanding that the mayor and the Board of Airport Commissioners prohibit any renewal of that lease until Home Depot agrees to no further unconstitutional and unlawful conduct on that property. And I'm sick and tired of waiting. And I will say, several weeks after we wrote our petition, Brad Sherman sent a very similar letter to Karen Bass, making very similar demands. And I want a member of Congress who's going to be out front and not waiting and not following behind. I didn't wait to figure out whether the political winds were blowing in the right direction to start a Green New Deal. We built a Green New Deal in California during the pandemic, the California Climate Action Corps. We need people who are looking ahead of the curve, who know how to build coalitions, who have the right values and the right principles, and who are beholden to the people of their district, not to the corporations that are funding their campaigns. And that is why I believe that I can be the best fighter for our 32nd district. And that's why I think people are excited about this campaign. I will say, for folks who want to get involved, we're not in the district, but we're close. It's north of San Vicente. We got the endorsements recently of the East Valley Indivisibles, the San Fernando Valley Indivisibles, the Simi Valley Dem Club, the Malibu Dem Club. Every single young Dem club that endorses in this race has endorsed my campaign. We just found out today, we got the endorsement of the Iranian American Democratic Club. I mean, people are, when they learn about what we're doing, they're inspired and they're activated because they see somebody that wants to make change and doesn't want to wait for it. And we don't have time anymore. The stakes are just too high. We can't wait another decade, another 2 decades. We need to start making change now.
Totally. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jake Levine, for being here. Appreciate it. Jake Levine, everybody.
Thank you, John. Thanks for the opportunity.
I appreciate you. So thank you to Jake. Thank you to our panelists today. Thank you to the board. Congratulations for being elected. May 27th is the next meeting. Right here, we'll be talking immigration enforcement and the community response. We are adjourned. Thank you.